My parents insisted I move in to care for my brother's kids while he was deployed. I did for months until I stumbled upon their real plan. Now they panic when they realized I knew something was off the moment I heard my mother's hushed voice through the kitchen door. "We need April here now, it's the only way this will work." My father's muffled response made my stomach twist. She'll never agree if she knows the truth. I should have trusted my instincts right then. But when you're raised to believe family comes first, red flags just look like flags. "My name is April, and this is how I learned the hard way that blood isn't always thicker than water." "April, sweetheart," my mother's voice shifted to sugary sweet as I pushed through the door. She quickly ended her phone call, sliding her cell into her pocket. "We didn't hear you come in." "Sorry I'm early for dinner," I said, watching their faces carefully. The meeting at work finished sooner than expected. My father busied himself with the dishes, avoiding eye contact. "Well, you're just in time, we need to discuss something important." Mom gestured to the kitchen table, her perfectly manicured nails drumming against the wood. "Sit down, dear, this is about Guillermo." My brother's name got my full attention. "Is he okay?" "He's being deployed again," Mom said, reaching for my hand. 6 months, maybe longer." "What about Sawyer and August?" I asked, thinking of my niece and nephew. "That's exactly what we need to discuss." Dad finally turned around, leaning against the counter. "The kids need someone to stay with them in Guillermo's house. Their mother's not in the picture, and we're too old to handle 2 young children full-time." I felt the trap closing in before they even sprung it. "We need you, April," Mom squeezed my hand. "The kids need you. Guillermo needs you." "I have a job," I protested. "A life, my apartment." "You can work remotely," Dad cut in. "Most companies are flexible these days, and you've always said you wanted to spend more time with the kids." "When does he deploy?" 2 weeks, Mom answered too quickly. I pulled my hand away. 2 weeks, and he's just telling us now? "You know your brother," Dad shrugged. "Never wants to worry anyone." Something didn't add up. Guillermo always planned everything meticulously, especially when it came to his kids. He would have had arrangements in place months ago. "Let me call him." I reached for my phone. "He's in pre-deployment training," Mom interrupted. "Very limited contact, but he agreed this would be best for everyone." I looked between them, searching for signs of deception. "You're sure he's okay with this?" "Of course," Mom's voice rose slightly. "Why wouldn't he be?" The next hour was a blur of guilt trips and emotional manipulation. They had answers for everything: my job concerns, my lease, my social life. By dessert, I felt cornered into agreeing. "I'll need to give notice at work," I said, pushing away my untouched pie. "We'll help you move this weekend," Dad said, already pulling out his phone to make arrangements. That night I called my best friend, Thea. "Something feels wrong." I paced my apartment. They were too prepared, too pushy. "Then don't do it," Thea said simply. "But what if Guillermo really needs me?" "Those kids," I stopped pacing. "I can't let them down." "Your parents are master manipulators," Thea reminded me. "Remember the Christmas incident?" I did. "They'd orchestrated a family crisis to prevent me from taking a job in Seattle 3 years ago. Just be careful," they advised. "Document everything." 2 weeks later, I stood in Guillermo's living room, surrounded by boxes and 2 excited kids. Sawyer, 7 and precocious, hadn't stopped chattering since I arrived. 5-year-old August clung to my leg like a koala. "Daddy said you're staying forever," Sawyer announced, helping me unpack kitchen boxes. "Not forever, sweetie. Just until your dad comes home." "Grandma said forever," August mumbled into my knee. I froze, a coffee mug suspended halfway to the cabinet. "Grandma said that?" "Uh-huh. She told the man with the clipboard, 'You're staying forever so they can sell the house.'" The mug slipped from my fingers, shattering on the floor. As I cleaned up the pieces, my mother's whispered words from 2 weeks ago echoed in my head. "It's the only way this will work." What exactly had I gotten myself into? "Don't worry about the mess," Mom appeared in the doorway, making me jump. "I'll clean it up. You focus on getting settled in." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "After all, we want everything to be perfect, don't we?" "Perfect for what?" I wanted to ask. Instead, I nodded and hugged the kids closer. Whatever game my parents were playing, they'd chosen the wrong pawn. 3 weeks into my new role as substitute mom, I'd developed a routine: drop Sawyer at school, take August to preschool, work remotely from Guillermo's home office, then tackle the mountain of tasks that came with caring for 2 kids. It would have been manageable, if not for my parents' constant hovering. "The realtor's coming by today," Mom announced, letting herself in without knocking, again. I looked up from my laptop. "What realtor?" "Oh, just for an assessment," she waved dismissively. "Insurance purposes. Shouldn't we wait for Guillermo to handle that?" "Your brother gave us power of attorney before he left," Dad appeared behind her. "Standard procedure for deployment." I'd worked in legal services long enough to know that wasn't standard at all. "I'll need the office cleared out by 2, Mom started opening drawers. "And maybe the kids could stay at our house tonight? They have school tomorrow." I closed my laptop. "And I promised Sawyer we'd video call her class pet's new babies, the hamsters." Mom wrinkled her nose. "Surely that can wait." "No, it can't." I stood my ground. The kids need routine right now. After they left, I searched Guillermo's office. The drawer Mom had been rifling through contained property documents, but something was missing. I remembered seeing a blue folder here last week. My phone buzzed, a text from Thea, "Coffee? I'm in your neighborhood." 20 minutes later, we sat in a quiet corner of the local cafe. "They're up to something," I whispered, stirring my latte. "Yesterday I overheard Mom on the phone talking about market value and a quick sale." "Have you heard from Guillermo?" Thea asked. "No, and that's weird too. He always finds a way to contact the kids, even during training." A familiar voice carried across the cafe. "The property is perfect for development once we clear the title." I grabbed Thea's arm. 2 tables over sat a man in a suit, the realtor, I assumed, talking to someone on his phone. "Yes, Mrs. Morgan assured me the current occupants are temporary. We can close within 60 days. My coffee turned to acid in my stomach. "Did he just say Morgan?" Thea whispered. "Your mom's maiden name." That night, after tucking the kids in, I searched Guillermo's email. His password had always been predictable, the kids' birthdays combined. The most recent emails were from 3 months ago. "Hey big brother," I typed, "if you get this, please contact me. Something's not right. Auntie April." Sawyer's voice made me jump. She stood in the doorway clutching her stuffed giraffe. "I had a bad dream." I closed the laptop. "Come here, sweetie." She crawled into my lap. "When is Daddy coming home?" "Soon," I lied, hugging her tight. "Want to tell me about your dream?" "Grandma said we have to move away," she sniffled. "She said Daddy's house is too big for us now." My blood ran cold. When did she say that? When she was showing the man my room. She didn't know I was listening. I carried Sawyer back to bed, my mind racing. Once she was asleep, I called the one person who might have answers. "Khalil Howard Real Estate, this is Jessica speaking." "Hi, I'm calling about a property assessment scheduled for tomorrow." "Oh yes, the Morgan listing on Pine Street." "Morgan listing, not Russell listing." "Could you confirm the appointment time with Mrs. Morgan?" I kept my voice steady. She asked me to check. "Actually, Mr. Howard is meeting both Mr. and Mrs. Morgan at the property at 2. They're finalizing the listing agreement." I thanked her and hung up, hands shaking. My parents weren't just planning to sell Guillermo's house, they were already in the process. But how? They'd need the missing blue folder, the power of attorney documents. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "Signal weak, got your email. What's wrong?" Before I could reply, I heard the front door open. Mom's voice drifted up the stairs. "The kids' rooms need painting before we list," she was saying. "Neutral colors sell better." "Ruby, shh," Dad hissed. "April might hear." "Oh please, she's clueless," Mom scoffed. "Just like her brother. Too trusting for their own good." I pressed my hand against my mouth, stifling my anger. Through the gap in the office door, I watched them climb the stairs, carrying paint samples. Now you can watch the second part by pressing share and more. Well, we had to prioritize. My stepmom smiled. My stepbrother sat next to my dad at the front. So I said, "Thanks for making it so easy," and walked out. Only weeks later they would beg me to come back because I took extra shifts, I covered my own rent, and still, whenever my job came up, Dad had something to say. "Long shift, well, you picked it. Still renting. You should have made better choices. Hope you like working nights forever." The worst part, I still showed up for him. When his blood pressure got bad, I was the one who checked it. When he was recovering from surgery, I was the one making sure he took his meds. When he needed a doctor, I was the one arranging appointments. And every single time, he brushed it off. "It's not like you're a real doctor. You're making too big a deal out of this. I don't need babysitting." I should have walked away then. But I didn't, because I kept thinking, he's still my dad. That has to mean something. But sitting in that parking lot, staring at my silent phone, I realized something. It didn't. And for the first time, I was okay with that. I didn't hear from anyone that night. Not a single text. I don't know why I expected one, maybe some last-minute damage control. I half expected a "where'd you go?" from my dad, or a message from Linda pretending she was joking. Nothing. I went home, kicked off my heels, ordered takeout, scrolled through my phone like it was just a normal night. And I felt fine, not angry, not sad, just done. But the next morning, the first message came, "Aunt Jan, hey, are you okay?" That was how I knew people had started to notice. I ignored it. Then another, "Cousin Liam, did something happen? I saw you leave early." Ignored. Then finally my dad, "Dad, we need to talk." No apology. No, "I'm sorry if you felt left out. Just we need to talk." I left it on read. I spent the next few days waiting for the guilt to hit me. It never did. Instead, I felt lighter. I went to work, took extra shifts, had coffee with friends. I did normal things. And for the first time in years, I wasn't replaying old conversations in my head. No, maybe I should have said this instead. No, maybe I'm being too sensitive. Just silence. It was nice. Then a week later, I got a call from my aunt. "You need to talk to your dad." I didn't say anything. Just waited. She sighed. "He's in the hospital." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because of course. "He's fine," she added quickly, "but he needs help." But there was no "he wants to see you." No, "he feels terrible about what happened." Just "he needs help." I should have seen it coming. Turns out, my dad had ignored his symptoms for too long. High blood pressure, stress, some kind of complication with his meds. Before, I would have been the one catching it early. I would have checked in, reminded him to go to the doctor, made sure he was taking care of himself. Not now. Now he was stuck in the hospital, and I wasn't answering his calls. And suddenly it mattered. The next few days were a family-wide crisis. Linda called, I ignored her. Ethan called, ignored him too. Then Aunt Jan tried again. Look, I get why you're upset. I raised an eyebrow. Do you? She hesitated. You know how he is. He doesn't mean things the way they sound. I let out a breath. Hey, let's test that. What? Tell me what he meant then. Silence, because she couldn't. He did mean it. Every time, every comment, every time he made me feel small, he meant it. And now he wanted me back. I got another text that night. Dad, I need to talk to you. Not I'm sorry, not I messed up, just I need. I turned off my phone. A week later he was discharged. The problem, he needed ongoing care. And guess what? That's expensive. Before, he had me. I did it all for free, checked his blood pressure, monitored his meds, made sure he followed doctor's orders. Now, he had to hire someone, and he couldn't afford it. Linda tried one last time. I think we should put the past behind us. I almost choked on my coffee. Oh, do you? Your dad is struggling. This is a family matter. I let out a short laugh. Right, family. That's interesting, because a few weeks ago I was sitting at the cousin table. Silence. So which is it? I asked. Am I family, or am I a distant relative you can ignore until you need something? That's not fair. Neither was your seating chart. I hung up. I don't know what happened after that. Maybe they found someone cheaper. Maybe they figured it out on their own. All I know is that they stopped calling. And I haven't heard from them since. Update, they stopped calling for a while. I thought that was the end of it. That they'd figure something out. Or that my dad would finally accept that I wasn't coming back just because it was convenient for him. Then Linda showed up at my job. It was a slow afternoon at the clinic. I was finishing up paperwork when I heard a familiar voice at the front desk. I'm here to see my stepdaughter. It's urgent. I closed my eyes, took a breath. Linda. The receptionist was already telling her she needed an appointment, that personal visits weren't allowed during shifts. But Linda had that polite but pushy way of speaking that always got her what she wanted. I stepped out before she could make a scene. What are you doing here? I asked, arms crossed. She smiled like we were old friends. I just wanted to talk. We already did, over the phone, remember? Her smile twitched. This isn't about me, your father. I held up a hand. No, you don't get to bring him up like that's going to change anything. He's not doing well. I let out a short laugh. Yeah, I know, that's what happens when you ignore your health for years. She sighed. He's getting worse. We can't afford full-time care, and you should have prioritized better. Her eyes flickered. She knew exactly what I meant. This isn't the time for grudges, she tried. He's your father and, silence, because there was nothing else to say. She wanted me to feel guilty. To suddenly remember my place and step back in like nothing had happened. But I wasn't that person anymore. If he needs care, hire someone, I said. If you can't afford it, ask Ethan. He's the successful one, right? Her jaw tightened. He's busy. I almost laughed again. Yeah, that's what I thought. I turned to leave. She grabbed my wrist. You owe him, she hissed, voice low so no one else could hear. And there was the real reason she was here. I pulled my hand back. No, I don't. Then I walked away. Update, I thought that was the last of it. It wasn't. A week later my dad called. I almost didn't pick up, but part of me was curious. I answered. Silence for a second. Then, hey, I leaned against the counter. What do you want? He exhaled. Linda said she talked to you. She did. More silence. Then, I think we should talk, in person. I laughed. Oh, now you want to see me. He ignored that. Come by the house. We'll have dinner, just us. I glanced at the clock. You know, if you'd asked me that a year ago, I would have been so excited. More silence. But I think we both know this isn't about dinner. He sighed. Just come by. Against my better judgment, I agreed. The next evening, I went to the house. It was weird being back. Nothing had changed, but it didn't feel like home anymore. It hadn't for a long time. Dad was already at the table when I walked in. The smell of takeout filled the room. He hadn't cooked, he never did. I sat down. For a few minutes, we ate in silence. Then finally he spoke. So how's work? Now you can watch the second part by pressing share and more. For months until I stumbled upon their real plan. Now they panic when they realized I watched them climb the stairs, carrying paint samples and carpet swatches. My phone buzzed again. April, you there? Signal dropping. Call base command if emergency. I typed quickly. They're selling your house. Need proof of power of attorney. Call ASAP. The message failed to send. When I tried again, the number was invalid. Downstairs, the front door opened again. More voices joined my parents, male voices discussing property values and development potential. Game on, I thought, opening my laptop. Time to find out exactly what they were planning and how to stop it. What do you mean they forged the documents? Thea nearly spilled her wine. I spread the papers across her dining room table. Look at the signature date on the power of attorney, 3 months ago. But here's G's bank statement from the same day. He was in Georgia for training. Holy. She leaned closer. And you found this in their car. Mom left her briefcase in the garage while they were painting upstairs. I had 10 minutes. My hands shook as I sorted through the evidence. There's more. They've already accepted an offer from a development company. They're planning to tear down the house and build condos. But why? Your brother's house is paid for, right? That's what I thought. I pulled up an email on my phone. But I found this in Mom's deleted folder. They co-signed on a bad investment last year. Lost everything. They're underwater on their own mortgage. So they're stealing from their own son to fix their mistakes. Thea's face reddened with anger. While he's serving our country. My phone buzzed. Mom again. I ignored it. The worst part, I continued. They've been planning this since before G's deployment. They needed me there to make it look legitimate, like the family was all on board with the sale. What about the kids? According to these documents, they're planning to move them into their house. Paint me as an unstable caretaker if I object. My voice cracked. They've thought of everything. Not everything. Thea grabbed her laptop. I have a friend who works at the county records office. Let's see what else they've been up to. 3 hours and another bottle of wine later, we had a clearer picture. My parents had created a shell company to buy the property. They'd used Mom's maiden name on it to connect the dots. April, Thea said suddenly, what if G's deployment isn't real? I stared at her. What? Think about it. Have you actually spoken to him? Seen deployment papers? My phone buzzed again, this time a text from August's teacher. Is everything okay? He's very upset about moving. I have to get back. I stood up, gathering the documents. The kids. Wait, Thea grabbed my arm. You can't go back there alone. What if they realize you know? They won't. I'm their clueless daughter, remember? I tried to smile but felt sick. Besides, I need to keep playing along until I can reach G. Back at the house, I found Mom in the kitchen with the kids. There you are, she smiled too brightly. We were just discussing summer plans. The children are so excited about moving in with us. No, we're not, Soya protested. I want to stay in Daddy's house. Now, sweetheart, Mom's voice hardened slightly. We've talked about this. Sometimes we have to make changes. What changes? I interrupted, watching her face carefully. Oh, just general changes, she backpedaled. Growing family, new opportunities. When's Daddy coming home? August asked for the 100th time. Soon, darling, Mom patted his head. Now, who wants ice cream? After the kids were in bed, I sat in G's office, staring at his deployment photo. Something was off. I zoomed in, the date stamp. It was from his last deployment 2 years ago. My hands trembling, I called the base command number I'd found earlier. Fort Stewart, Sergeant Phillips speaking. Hi, I'm calling about my brother G. Russell. He deployed recently. One moment, keys clicked. No deployment orders for anyone by that name in the last 6 months, ma'am. Could you check again? He's supposed to be in pre-deployment training. No training records either. Last activity was an honorable discharge, 3 months ago. I hung up, bile rising in my throat. 3 months ago, when the power of attorney was dated. A floorboard creaked behind me. Finding anything interesting? Dad stood in the doorway, his face unreadable. Just missing G, I lied smoothly. Any word from him? He studied me for a long moment. Your mother thinks we should all have dinner tomorrow. Discuss the future. Sounds great. I forced a smile. I'll bring. In hospital, parents took everything. Don't let them sell house. Protect kids. The timestamp was from 10 minutes ago. Another creak in the hallway. Mom's voice, low and urgent. She knows something. I saw her car at the county office building. Then we move faster, Dad replied. Call Khalil. Tell him we close next week. I sat in the dark office, my brother's words burning on the screen, and made a decision. They wanted to play hardball. Game on. The hospital receptionist sighed at my third attempt. I'm sorry, but without knowing which hospital, please, I begged. He's my brother, G. Russell, recently discharged military. Ma'am, I've checked every hospital in a 50-mile radius. I ended the call and slumped in my car, parked outside my parents' house. They were inside with the kids, thinking I was at a work meeting. Instead, I'd spent the morning calling hospitals and Veterans Affairs offices. My phone buzzed. The lawyer friend can meet today. 2 p.m. A tap on my window made me jump. Khalil, the realtor, stood there smiling. April, right? Your parents mentioned you'd be joining us for the walkthrough. I forced a smile and got out. Actually, I have some questions about the sale. Of course, though your parents handle most of the paperwork as power of attorney. About that, I pulled out my phone. Could you look at something? Before I could show him the forged documents, Mom burst out of the house. April, you're early, she grabbed my arm. Khalil, would you mind giving us a moment? She practically dragged me inside. Dad sat at the kitchen table with papers spread out. Where are the kids? I asked. At the park with the sitter, Mom replied. We need to talk. About what? The fake deployment? The forged documents? Or how about G being in a hospital somewhere? The color drained from Mom's face. Dad stood up slowly. Who have you been talking to? He demanded. Does it matter? I know what you're doing. We're doing this for the family, Mom insisted. The market's perfect right now. The development deal will set us all up for life. It's not your house to sell. Your brother made some mistakes, Dad cut in. Bad investments, gambling debts. We're protecting his assets before creditors take everything. Liar. I pulled out my phone. I have proof of the forged documents. I'm calling the police. Dad moved firm. They're safe with people who actually care about them. I yanked free. Now about that proof. Dad thundered back down. Their rooms are empty. Call the police, Mom ordered him. She kidnapped them. Go ahead. I held up my phone. I'm recording everything. And in about 10 minutes, my lawyer will be receiving emails with all the evidence, including the conversation we're having right now. You wouldn't, Mom whispered. We're your parents. Parents don't steal from their children. Parents don't forge documents or fake deployments. We have no choice, Dad shouted. The investment, Eugene, shut up. Mom cut him off. No, please continue, said a new voice. Khalil stood in the doorway, his phone also recording. I'd love to hear about the fraudulent sale I was almost part of. Mom crumpled into a chair. Dad's face went purple. I called the police myself, Khalil continued. They're on their way, along with someone from the VA fraud department. How long were you listening? Mom asked weakly. Long enough. He turned to me. The kids, with my friend Thea. Now you can watch the second part by pressing share and more.